Welcome, Gary, for coming back onto Atomic Conversations to talk about specifics about operating the business and being that dispensing director for Specsavers. I think it's a phenomenal story that you have that UK background, and then you worked your way up. You got promoted to supervisor, and they saw so much capabilities from you for you to come and expand into Australia.
Yeah.
Let's kick off with you describing the career progression, opportunities available within Specsavers for employees.
Yeah. So I mean, my story. Basically, I started off as an optical assistant working part-time in one of the stores in the UK, and then I sort of saw the career opportunities within the business, but the career opportunities in the UK at the time was a bit limited, and it was already very saturated, that market, with people potentially in the pipeline to move into stores. So I didn't really see that opportunity. But then moving obviously to Australia, I saw them opportunities there because it was a new sort of it was a new territory, and it was basically a new opportunity to potentially buy something from the ground up and build something from the ground up and be in there from day one. So my sort of career progression was literally went from a part-timer to a supervisor, and then I literally jumped into a performance consultant role when I moved to Australia initially. But for Specsavers as a whole, like it is pretty good in regards to the way that it's structured, because they have a supervisor program, then they'll have a management ascent program, and then eventually once you get signed off on that, you then potentially can become a partner in one of the stores, whether that be an organic store or whether that be an existing store and you buy into an existing partnership. From the career progression side of it, it usually takes about 18 months to 2 years for the right person, but some people can do it quicker than that. There is a few other programs in there as well from external operators that come in, and it's not as popular so much anymore, but that was called a partnering development program, and that would literally bring people in that was store managers of, say, a Woolworths or a Coles or a Bunnings, like a big box retailer, bring them in, teach them the basics of optics and obviously running the store itself, and then pretty much they would then get the opportunity to buy into an existing store as well.
What's the more fun side? Starting from a junior position because you're so new to it. Maybe that's exciting too.
It is exciting, yeah, because obviously it's a new sort of, I suppose, career. Like for myself, I came from a very different background. I was in hospitality for a long time before I came into retail, and it was very exciting learning all the new terminology and learning the new skills of the machines and how to sort of, I suppose, dispense. And for me, like, I was over different areas, so like I used to spend a few days in each store. So when I first came to Australia, I would literally work from location to location, and I'd spend 3 or 4 days in each location, and then I'd go back to it in rotation of those stores opening. Then I would obviously move on to the next block of stores as we sort of progress through that 100 stores in 100 days movement that we did. But yeah, I think for anyone it's a good opportunity, and it's very different to a lot of other retail jobs. It's not just like in a clothes shop, for instance, or in, I don't know, say like a bakery or something like that. I suppose there is career progression there available to people. Yeah, and not just in retail stores. You've got obviously operations within head office as well, which is located in Port Melbourne.
Yeah. Does Specsavers give you a guideline? Say, for example, you get stuck in 100 stores in 100 days. That's a very big target.
Yeah.
I feel like, if you get stopped, are you one of these people that like to research?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yourself,
I think you have to be prepared. Yeah, like back then there wasn't really anyone. It was a little bit sort of like, yep, there you go, there's the target. See in 100 days sort of thing. Like it wasn't a big support network back then. Very sort of limited staff and limited capabilities in the people that was here. But over time, obviously that's grown, and now there's a lot of support there for people. There's a lot of guides out there as well in regards to like how obviously a store should be run, and obviously the structure of your career progression as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, and we were talking about effective training, and promotion strategies help retain top talent and foster leadership.
Yeah.
How do you approach training and promoting staff to managerial or ownership positions within your stores?
Training for me is very, very sort of personalised to the person. I'm quite a direct person when I'm talking to people, so I have to sort of adapt my training skills and my leadership skills to each individual person. But I just try and get them to learn the basics and then sort of get them to recognise or lean into their skills dependent on what it is within the business. So like for instance, some people may be really into retail standards. So for that person, they may be very well suited to become a merchandiser, for instance. Someone else might be all about systems and processes, so they could control the audit system side of it and the cash reconciliation side of it. They could look after that. You might have someone that's really into sort of spreadsheets and things, so you could put them in charge of rosters, and obviously you overview all of these little things, obviously, but yeah, you put them in their areas and you get them to lean into what it is that they actually enjoy doing. Obviously the basic takes about 6 to 9 months to become a dispenser, I suppose, qualified dispenser. Then you let them sort of grow over the next sort of 12 months, 2 years, see where they want to go with that. Obviously have regular check-ins with them as well, so I generally try and do like one-to-ones on a 6 monthly basis with people. Sometimes it can be, some people will do it every month, but I think that's a bit overkill really. But yeah, every 6 months, because people's life change, people's outcomes and goals change. So I do a 6 month and then a yearly one, which is basically what we call a performance review. And people sort of panic a little bit the first time they do that because they think that they're getting reviewed on their performance, but then the way that them meetings are structured, it's literally I don't talk, they do all the talking, and we have like a structure of stuff conversation that we're going to talk about, but it's literally what has worked really well over the last 6 months, what hasn't worked well, what do you want to do over the next 6 to 12 months, what do you see happening with your career progression, are you going to sort of move up, step up in different roles, and literally, yeah, we'll sort of work from each person's individual sort of, I suppose, like a bespoke plan for them. So we try to do that with each person.
Yeah, and it's good to talk about how they performed in the past 6 months and then listen to their needs and see are they seeking that progression?
And if there's any support that's needed from me as well, so it's like, what can I do to help you do your job better, basically? Or is there anything that you want me to stop doing? So another thing that I do personally that I know a lot of people don't do it within the business, but for me, I've learned like a skill where I send a 2-line email, and I send this out to the team every single year. And one of the questions is, what is one thing that you would like me to continue doing that I've done really well over the last 12 months? And what is one thing that you'd want me to stop doing that I'm not doing very well with over the last 12 months? Give me your answers. Sometimes I get responses, sometimes I don't. It's very confronting to receive an email like that from your boss, but yeah, I like doing it. I find it works for some people. I get a lot out of it.
What's the most intriguing response you had when you posed these 2 questions?
Intriguing. It's hard to sort of say. I haven't got one particular response that stands out, but it sort of fascinates me, people's perspectives of different like interactions. So like for me, I might have maybe interacted with a certain person, and for me it was like a non-event, and then for the other person they sort of remember it. Like I've spoke to people since then, like since they've moved on to other businesses and stuff, and they've come back and we've chatted and stuff, and they've explained stuff to me, and I'm like, wow, I didn't think that was even a thing for you. Like not in a bad way, but like just something that they sort of in passing a comment, and I'd be like, wow, okay, yeah, cool, that's interesting.
Like it affected them, whether it's positive or negative. They remembered, but you were like, you didn't take into account that was anything too worth mentioning.
Yeah. Like we have a logic system within the store, so like one person is allocated a role to be meet and greet, and then someone does pre-test before they go in the room, someone can be on the desk to deal with obviously people coming in and management and traffic flow, and then you've got dispensers allocated, dispenser 1, dispenser 2, dispenser 3, however many you've got in your team. And this particular person that I'm mentioning, like, I never used to put her on meet and greet. She was a really bubbly person, but she was really, really good at like obviously organising the structure and basically taking orders and like getting people sat down and doing the dispenses really quickly. So I never put her on meet and greet. I always put her on dispense, and she actually came back to me. She was like, "You never put me on meet and greet," and I'm like, I didn't even think of it that way. I thought of it as though you're really, really good at like obviously making sure the orders are all done correctly.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think about putting her on that. But yeah, it's
You kind of saw the highlight out of her. You were like, she's so good at doing this. We'll just keep her there.
Yeah.
So then she wondered, oh, how come my boss doesn't let me attempt something else?
Yeah,
attempt something different.
suited in a different role.
Yeah. When you say meet and greet, like you mean?
Meet and greet is just someone that
Clients.
stands at the front and like sort of greets someone that comes into the business and like sort of hands flyers out, things like that.
Yes.
General inquiries.
Yep. I see. That's interesting. Share ownership, right? And let's talk about buying price and share valuations. Now, the ownership structure often plays a vital role in how a business operates and distributes its profits. Can you elaborate on the share structure of your partnership at Specsavers?
So share structures are essentially in most franchises, I would say, I wouldn't say all, but most franchises, it's a share structure of A shares and B shares. So generally the person that's operating the business will be the A share holder, and then the person that sort of overlooks the business and maybe the franchisor, I think that's the right term, franchisor, franchisee, but like they would basically hold the B shares, and they basically, you then buy into a partnership. The price of the shares, it really varies wildly. So like it could be, if it's a completely brand new store, it might be $1 per share, all the way up to $1 million, $2 million. It really depends on what that business is valued at the time of the incoming person and the outgoing person value it at. So if it's a brand new store, never opened its doors, there's obviously no history, there's no profit in there to value the business from. So therefore that would be $1 a share. And then the ownership of that is then obviously decided between either yourself and Specsavers if it's a brand new store, or the other partner that may be coming into that business. So it might be allocated that you only get 30% now, 40%, 50%. Every share structure is slightly different. But yeah, it can be anything from sort of $1 all the way up to say $1 million. And I know that's probably not a straight answer, but that's just basically how the business is valued, and it's usually 2.5 times EBITDA, so like earnings before interest and tax. With the structure itself, like with the way that the sort of structures are then set up after that, so like for my personal sort of structure is literally 50-50, so I own 68 shares and my business partner owns 68 shares as well, and then we then receive profit at the end of the sort of the month. The way it works generally with most Specsavers is literally you wear two hats. So you have a PAYG, which is generally a salaried employee, and then you also own shares in a business. So imagine it like owning shares in a stock on the stock market, and that stock then performs in a certain way and gives you a profit at the end of the month. So you get your salary, and then you also get obviously share profit on top of that as well. So you wear two hats basically as a PAYG and self-employed.
And you mentioned the owner of the business has the flexibility to pay themselves whatever amount of salary?
To a point, yeah. So you have like a banding system within our business anyway, where it's like you have medium-sized stores, large and XL, and then obviously you've got different bandings for retailers and different bandings for optometrists. So like with a retailer, it usually starts at around 75,000, then it'll go up to 90,000 if you're a large store. XL store, it might be 100, 110,000, depending on whether it's regional or metro. If it's regional, it's generally slightly less. If it's metro, it's slightly higher in regards to the pay structure. Optometrists, similar type of thing. They generally start on 100, and then 110, and then 120. That's normally how it works. So the optometrist gets paid slightly more. Yeah, from a salary perspective. But then when it comes to profits, if you own 50-50, then at the end of the month you get 50% of each profit share.
Yeah.
If you've got more partners, so say you've got a 30-30-30 split, then yeah, it'll be a three-way split, or it might be a four-way split, like a 25% share. Just depends on the size of the business, really.
Yeah, on the profits. So you designate the percentage for the profits at the end. Is it annually?
Well, it's
mentioned Specsavers does the auditing and the statements. So head office pays each partner
Yeah.
based on their shares on a monthly basis.
Yeah, on a monthly basis, yeah. So you get your salary obviously regardless, and then obviously if the business has made profit, then you'll get profit share from that.
So salaries paid on a monthly basis too?
400 sort of salary,
Standard.
yeah. With the obviously depending on if you're buying into a new business or an existing business as well. So coming back to that other point, like if you're buying a brand new business, then obviously you're not really gonna have a director's loan, so to speak. So your actual amount that you're paying to buy into the business, you won't really have a loan, because it's generally, if it's $1 a share and you bought 50 shares, 60 shares, then it's $50, $60, depending on what your ownership is. If it's an existing business, then, and let's say you're buying a business for $500,000, you might not have that whole $500,000 sat in the bank. So you then have to then get a loan from Specsavers to pretty much to facilitate the ownership of those shares. So you may put 10 grand in there, you might put 100 grand in there, you might even put the full 500, it depends on the person, I suppose. And then the rest of it is paid back over time. So when it comes to getting your shares, if you own, say, 50% of the business, but you've got an existing loan, and you've made profit of, say, $1,000 or $10,000, whatever the number is, you can then decide how that share is then paid back. So you have to pay your director's loan every month if you're making profit, but you don't have to take a profit from the business, from the shares. You can just allocate it all over to pay, if you want to pay down your loan quicker, basically. So if you want to pay down your director's loan, then you'll just allocate all the money over into your director's loan. If you want to live a bit and you want to obviously earn a bit of money and see the fruits of your labour from the business, then obviously for me, I would probably put a little bit on my director's loan and a little bit to myself, so like 50-50.
Can you explain what a director's loan is?
Director's loan generally in business terms is something that gets you into the business itself. So like for instance, if you are buying into a business and there is already an existing business there, and let's say the shares are valued at $100,000, but you've only put $10,000 into that business, that 90,000 has to come from somewhere. So that is then loaned from either a bank externally or from obviously the company itself. In our case, it's generally loaned from Specsavers.
Specsavers.
Yeah, and then we have then a director's loan sitting alongside the ownership of the business. You still get your salary regardless, but then you have to pay that loan back generally over a 5-year term, so whatever your lease is on your business.
Now, did you speak to your partner, the optometrist, before you guys discussed how much director's loan you need? I know it came from Specsavers in your circumstances. Did you have to first speak to your partner?
Not really, no. So with ours, like there was already a valuation done on the business. So when we bought our business, we bought it as what we call a going concern. So it actually wasn't really functioning very well, and there was no existing partners in there. So we didn't have to negotiate how much we was buying in for. That was already decided for us before we obviously bought into the business. So it was like for my business, for instance, it was $20,000 to buy in. For my partner, same thing, $20,000. So I didn't have that money myself, so I just put $5,000 of my own money into it, and the $15,000 was loaned as a director's loan to me. Same with my partner. So once I'd put my money in, he was going to put the full amount in, but because obviously we just did it as 50-50, he put 5,000 in and then he loaned 15,000 as well, and that's basically how the business was born. But yeah, everyone's situation is very different. Yeah.
It's good that Specsavers gives each business owner that flexibility.
Yeah.
To propose to them.
We got lucky. Well, we didn't get lucky. We worked very hard in our business, but literally our loan was paid back within about 2 months. So
you picked it up as a going concern, meaning the business wasn't doing too well.
Yeah, so we just paid it off. We paid the 15,000 within a couple of months, and like literally that was gone at that point, and then we started taking profit from it.
Yeah, and you were able to build the business very well. I remember within a month.
Like, oh yeah,
the next
yeah.
month.
Like it was generally trading at around about, our business was trading about around about $20,000 a week. We took it over, and within a month we were trading at $40,000 a week. So there's always opportunities out there for every business, definitely. You can't just sort of like write it off, say, it's never going to make money, because you don't know.
Was there celebrations when it hit $40,000?
Not really. We was just sort of like, this is what it should have been doing all along. So for us, we're very driven in regards to like obviously our performance. So for us, we was like, we just came in and did our job. Like literally, they sort of invited us to come and speak to the room. Like a few months later, after we'd had a few months of good performance, it wasn't just sort of sheer luck that we'd done one good month. We had like 6 months worth of evidence where we was obviously performing well. And they sort of came to us at one of the meetings and said, do you want to stand up and talk to the room? And our response was literally, we just went in there and did our jobs, and we performed. Like, yeah. So it's not rocket science. Like if you work hard and the business has got the potential to make money, you'll make money from it.
Specsavers definitely picked the right joint venture partnerships.
Definitely.
You know, they definitely made the right
Yeah.
assessment to bring you and your partner on. Definitely isn't sheer luck. They work with you.
You have
they promoted
personality
you.
tests as
Yeah.
well. So you have to do a personality test before you even apply to become a partner. Like, so they know sort of roughly where you sit within that disc format. So it's disc, it's called. So they generally use that one, which is I don't know the exact acronyms or what they stand for, but yeah, I know there's like, I think it's dominant and then passive. I couldn't tell you the actual names of them, what they are, but yeah, they use a disc profile, and then each partner is then paired up with the opposing sort of side.
Yes.
Because you don't want two people that have got the same,
Yeah.
obviously, personality, because that's
Yeah.
never going to work.
Yeah. You give someone. You balance out the strength and the weaknesses
do.
of each.
Yeah, you have to.
partnership.
That's how any successful partnership happens.
Wow, Specsavers put a lot of thought into this.
Oh,
A lot
yeah.
of psychology behind.
Yeah, well, you have to, because
Expanding
it's like
their
a marriage.
business.
So like you generally spend more time at work than you do at home. So you have
Yeah.
to be happy in that relationship as well.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of have that understanding with each other of where that person's coming from, what their perspective is on life and their work ethic, and what other commitments they've got outside of work. So you can build that compromise into the business and into your work schedule.
Now, dividends are a key component of how partners benefit from the business profit. You mentioned about dividends. How do you handle dividends within your partnership? I mean, are they distributed on a monthly, yearly basis?
Yeah, so dividends are generally distributed on a monthly basis to us, as the optical business is. I believe audio is different, but yeah, optical is generally on a monthly basis. And then like I said, if you've got an existing loan, you'll pay that first, and then you pay yourself, or pay yourself first, whichever way you want to look at it. Me personally, I would rather pay myself first than pay my business, because my business is going to pay itself regardless.
Yeah.
You also have a shop fit loan as well. So if you purchase generally a brand new store, there'll be a shop fit loan attached to that business as well, which is another pay down that you have to do as well. So generally your pay down structure for things like that will be, say, over a 5 to 7 year term, depending on what your lease is, and your heads of terms dictate that normally. And then that, let's say it's $750, that will then be sort of split up into 60 payments if it's over a 5 year period. That is generally worked out in your accounts as well. So before you receive profit, that is always paid first. So your shop fit is always paid first.
And shop fit, just to explain to the audience, basically is money spent decking out the
Yeah.
interiors of
So the
shop.
fit out of the actual shop itself. So everything that you see when you walk into any retail shop, someone's had to pay for that, and it's generally the owner of the business that has to pay for that. That is then, like I said, it's then amortized over 5 years or so, and then you just pay it down every single month.
With the profits that you make on a
Yeah, well,
monthly.
from your top line, basically, it all gets pulled out of that, and then obviously your profits is anything that's left over at the end of it.
Oh, right. So,
So what we call operating profit. So that's generally your bottom line after, obviously, expenses, tax, everything like that.
And the
that's
shop
what's
fit
left
loan.
over at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shop fit gets paid regardless, and then your profits is what you take
Yeah.
after.
Yep. And then the loan that Specsavers gave you gets deducted out of there
That
before
gets
they
deducted
distribute.
out of the
Investments and partnership structure. You already covered shop fit costs, director loans, and pay down structures. Now, maintaining financial flexibility is key to, managing unforeseen challenges. Oh, you mentioned maintaining a 2% buffer
Yeah,
with your standard financial percentages.
Yeah, generally as a guide, like we're given guides roughly on how to manage the business or how to at least make it profitable. So as a rule, like for ourselves, for instance, we generally try and keep our staff costs to around that 30 to 32% mark. Your rent is generally if you can get a business that's under 10% rent, and when we talk about 10%, we're talking about top line. So really simple numbers. Let's say, for instance, you're turning over $100,000 a month, then your rent needs to be under $10,000 basically a month. Your staff costs then need to be $30,000 a month, let's say. And then from that, if you can work that out if you can get those numbers, you can hit those targets, you will generally make money. Also, there's another factor within that as well, which is called cost of goods. So cost of goods is literally just buying the products, obviously making sure that you're not doing too many errors with the products and you're selling the right products to the right customers, basically.
Do Specsavers decide your suppliers, or you can source?
That's generally decided by them.
Well, that's one less thing to worry about.
Yeah, it's very much like sort of we pay a management fee to Specsavers to look after all of that stuff. So it's sort of like you buy in, you come and do your job, and like it's a lot of set and forget stuff, really.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what you pay your fees for. So
yes.
Yeah. Pay your management fees to whatever company that may be, and with our structure, it's usually about 20%, and then that's literally then paid back to them, and that covers everything from accounting, IT support, any type of lab support, anything that we need across the board to make our store function. They control a lot of that, or they at least support us with that.
And machinery, right? Because the optometrist needs machines to check eyes.
So we have obviously agreements with suppliers for things like that as well, which is again agreed by Specsavers, so we get discounts on things and stuff when we want to buy new machinery. Yeah.
What if you get clients, consumers that come in and say, you guys work with, let's say, Ted Baker as the brand of frames. Do people come complain to you about the fashion side of things? Like, can you guys?
Sometimes, yeah.
You guys bring different brands.
Yeah, sometimes. Like we sell Ted Baker, obviously, and like we have other brands as well. I'm not sponsoring Ted Baker, but yeah, like literally with that, like people do come in, but we don't really get any control over what gets sent to us. So it's decided that generally is like a national level of these are the frames that are going to be releasing in January, February, March, and we generally we don't have control over that.
So pretty much you can't give feedback back to Specsavers headquarters and say, hey, people don't like.
We can give feedback, but they generally go off consensus of frames. So like they'll release something and then they'll basically have a top 10 ranking of how well they sell. And obviously if they don't sell very well, then they'll obviously retract them from the range and they'll introduce something else. So it's a lot of trial and error with things like that as well.
Because each glasses you put probably has a code.
Yeah.
And then they'll track.
Yeah. So when we scan the products, like basically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it's very straightforward. It's just a percentage. Do you then stipulate, for example, hours of work, or do you give each other that grace? Give each other that flexibility. Like, for example, you can go in Thursday to Sunday, and then you take 3 days off. Do you guys determine between partners hours of work? Like, when you say heads of agreement,
heads of terms is for the business itself. So that's for the actual contract, the legal contract for the ownership of the business.
Yes. Like franchisee to Specsavers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but when it comes to like partnerships, then that's flexible. Obviously, it depends on the partner, and obviously if they're happy to take same days as you. If they don't want to, I mean, it's each to their own really with things like that. Like we do have an agreement, I suppose, that's sort of like unspoken, where we're like, okay, well, I'm going to work this day, you're going to work that day, and that's just the way that we work. Yeah, and we've always worked like that.
There's no formalities. It's not like a written strict.
No, like we do have obviously we do have a contract, like a contract employment, but that's usually decided between the partners.
Cool. I like the fact that you guys have that listening ear and give respect to each other as a partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. You mentioned about the audiologists,
Yep.
and they rent the space
Yep.
in your Deer Park branch. Specsavers, how does your partnership with the audiologist function within Specsavers?
So with generally how it works with audiology businesses is they're a business within a business. So they are separate to us in regards to obviously who looks after their booking system, diaries, telephone lines. It's all separate, so to speak. So they'll call the store and they may want to speak to an audiologist. They then get transferred to the audiologist. In regards to how the structure sort of works, it normally works as a percentage based. So with our structure, for instance, it's a 15% fee, like a flat fee, and that's what the audiologist pays to rent that space within our business. And that's off, the 15% is off his top line of sales, and the top line varies. The board.
Understanding the leasing and payment structure is crucial for financial planning. You mentioned earlier on 7-year lease term.
Yep. By the
Dictated.
landlord normally, so that's not really like anything that we can sort of dictate. So normally that comes from a landlord itself. So any retailer that's in any shopping centre, they will have agreed a lease term. Now, depending on how flexible the landlord is, depends on what that lease is going to look like. So as a general rule in a shopping centre, it's 5 years. That's your minimum. If it's say a standalone kiosk, it might be less than that, maybe 3 years. I'm not familiar with those, but yeah, as a shop itself, as a unit, it's generally 5 years, and then you can then obviously have that agreement and that sort of conversation with the landlord and say, actually, we need 5 years, 7 years, or we might need 9 years. Every shop's slightly different, and every landlord's different with that as well.
Do you personally do the negotiations with it?
No. So again, that's what we pay our fees for. So we have business transfer, we have business development. They look after all of that for us as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
we do
very
get
cool.
presented with an offer. So before we sign the heads of terms before we sign the lease, for the business, we can sort of go back and say, look, I'm not really happy with this base rent, or I'm not happy with the turnover rent total. I'm not happy with obviously any of them lease sort of items that are in there, and you can and it's a negotiation. It's like anything really with the deal. You can negotiate a little bit, take 5% off, 10% off here and there. With your landlord as well. Generally, you try and tie in your shop fits that you have. You generally try and tie them into the lease renewals as well. So like, let's say for instance you've got a lease renewal coming up in 2 years. Your shop's looking a little bit tired. Maybe you can sort of push it off until it gets to that 2-year mark, and then you go, right, okay, now we're going to put some money into the business, and we're going to do a brand new shop. And then we'll sign a new lease at that point as well. That gives you more negotiating power with the landlord as well.
Yes.
Because if you can sort of make that shop nice and pretty, landlords love that. So, and it's not costing them any money in a lot of cases. But sometimes if they want you to do a shop fit, say early, for instance, there can sometimes be incentives put in place from a landlord. So a landlord might give you, say, $100,000 contribution towards your shop fit, and that is then paid down every month. When your shop fit is paid, it's amortized over the 5-year, 7-year, 9-year term.
And it's paid on a monthly basis as well, that rent expense?
From
the
a
lease?
landlord? For us. So the
So-
landlord contribution, that's paid like in conjunction with our pay down of our shop fit cost.
Yeah.
So it comes with that, but it's generally built into the loan. So let's say, for instance, your shop fit cost you $500,000 and you've had a contribution from your landlord of $100,000, that will then get taken from day one, that will get taken off your shop fit. So your shop fit to you then cost you $400,000, and that other $100,000 is just running in the background, and that's paid down by the landlord on your behalf.
Yeah, okay. Straight away as a lump sum, 100,000?
No, it's generally amortized over the 5 years or 7
years.
years or whatever the term is.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. That's fair. It gives you as a business owner that break, and they're getting time to offer that contribution.
Yeah,
on
well, it keeps people in there, and obviously you've then got that sort of goodwill, I suppose, with you and the tenant as well as a landlord, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And obviously, before you purchase this, Specsavers business, you will know how much you're getting as a contribution from the landlord and what the leasing terms are, right? Before you sign?
No, before you sign your lease, yes.
Before
Yeah,
you
so
sign
that's
lease.
normally dictated in the contract. So
Yes.
in your lease itself, you will get presented with a lease. Sometimes, depending on the actual shopping centres as well, and depending on the way that their shopping centres operate. Like we went through a period where we was going through our lease, and we was in a period where it was called holdover. So holdover is pretty much where you're out of your lease, your actual 5-year, 7-year term, because we couldn't come to an agreement with our new lease. So we're on a month to month. They're not going to kick you out because you're an existing business and you're making money, obviously. But in that holdover period, then at that point you could technically close your business after 30 days and walk away from it, but it generally doesn't happen. But if you're in that period, that gives you a bit more negotiating power with the landlord as well, and say, listen, like, you need to come to the table with a little bit more than what you're giving at the moment. We've also been through another period where we was in the holdover period, and they kept changing property managers. So inside the shopping centre itself, we had property managers, and sometimes you might get an existing property manager that's very experienced, and they'll be like, listen, based on per square metre, you may be paying $1,000 per square metre for your shop, right? Which is roughly what you'll be paying for an optometry business with inside a shopping centre. It's about $1,000 per square metre. You might then get a new property manager coming in, or a leasing agent, sorry, is the wrong term. Leasing agent is the right term. Leasing agent comes in, new one comes in, young, wants to try and make a name for themselves, and they go, no, this person's going to pay $1,500 a square metre. So you have to have that negotiation. Like, we was in a period where our base rent was, I think it was like $150,000 a year. This new one came in, and they came with a 55% increase. And that would be a precedent, because no one else in our shopping centre is paying that much per square metre. So we just pushed back and we said no, because you've got to know what you buy. You've got to know your value as well, obviously. And we knew it, but they was just trying to sort of take advantage of us. So we was just like, no, we'll push back, and we pushed back and pushed back. Inevitably, that person got sacked because they was trying to do that with more than one tenant, and then they brought in a new one that was a bit more easy to sort of work with, and they came back to us with a bit more of an easier sort of negotiation, and they sort of came back to us with a bit more agreeable number. So yeah, but when you're doing your actual lease negotiations, you have another thing as well in there, which is called turnover rent. So the way turnover rent is a little bit of a sneaky way for landlords to get a little bit more money from you as well. So turnover rent is on top of your base rent. So let's say your base rent is $100,000 a year. You'll then have a clause in your contract that basically says, if you turn over more than $1.5 million a year, let's say, for instance, and you do turn over more than that 1.5, anything above that 1.5 number, you'll pay a percentage to the landlord on top of your rent. So like for us, ours is set at 8%. But we learnt the hard way, because when we first did our first lease renewal, like, it literally was $1.5 million, and we turned over $1.5 million within about 6 months. So we started paying turnover rent straight away. And because we was new to the business, we was like, what's this? Like, where's this money going every month? And then when it came to our new lease renewal, it was like, right, okay, we're going to do $5 million, and that's going to be our turnover rent threshold. Yes. So yeah, you just learn these things over time, obviously.
Yeah, you get clever about how to negotiate better terms.
Yeah, definitely.
To keep the business long sustaining. Yeah. But it's nice doing business with people that are understanding.
Yeah.
It's that give and take. Like, okay, you give me a contribution, all right. You can have a little bit more of, whether it's turnover rent or whatnot.
It can be negotiated. It depends. Some landlords, like some of the bigger sort of conglomerates, they just won't. They're like, literally, this is the terms. Accept it or not, because we've got 50 other people waiting to go into that unit. In this environment that we're in at the moment, it can be a little bit more favourable for the tenant, I would say, because there's a lot of units in any shopping centre that you go in, or any shopping strip. You see that there's a lot of empty or vacant units. So yeah, you can get some good deals at the moment, definitely. But yeah, when it's good times, no, the landlords generally are not that forgiving.
Yeah. The markets like go on the demand and supply. Exactly. Yeah. When there's oversupply, all right, they get it. Okay.
Yeah.
We give you better deals.
Yeah. So it can be. It's a big learning curve with that.
I know you mentioned about expanding of existing businesses. Have you thought about grabbing up another one?
Well, we did expand. So 3 years ago, we basically took our neighbouring tenancy. So we was getting to a point where we was getting to capacity every single week, and it was just too busy, and there wasn't enough space. And luckily, the unit next door to us came up. So we just found we sort of went back to the landlord at that point, because we were still in holdover at that point. And the holdover period, we'd been in it for about 9 months, and I think they were just desperate for us to sign a contract. So we just sort of went and said, yeah, okay, we want this, but we want it for this price, and we managed to get it. So
oh, cool.
yeah,
so you went to
we literally
increase
just
the space.
we had a big square box, and
Yep.
we took the big square box next to us,
door.
and it was literally it went from 100 square meters to 220 square meters in space. So yeah, we literally doubled our footprint
Cool.
within that expansion.
Because when I visited your store, I saw you attending to clients on that side. That
Yeah.
must have been that
Was
extra
the existing that was the old store, yeah.
Cool.
So our door is like our old store, and then yeah, you got your new store, yeah.
Wow, milestones.
Yeah.
I think each time you remember these moments, you as you speak to the audience, it's just you must be so proud of these.
Yeah, definitely.
Pivotal
Like,
moment.
yeah, like you sort of when I first joined up with that business itself, like for instance, we was doing sort of around about that $2.5 million mark. And I remember the first year we hit $3 million, and it was just one of them moments where we're like, wow, like that's a really great achievement. We also hit another milestone where we ended up doing $100,000 in a week, and that was one of our sort of targets that we wanted to do as well. So that was called the 100 Club, and that's something internally that we have, and we wanted to do $100,000 of sales in a week, and we did it. So yeah, there's just little celebrations along the way, and then also I have staff that have done certain things where we've trained them, and they've gone on to take their own businesses, or they've gone on to do bigger sort of better things as well. So yeah, there's lots of milestones throughout the sort of time, and it's been 12 years within this existing business that I'm in now, but in the actual optical business, I've been in it for 17 years now, nearly. Yeah.
So come Christmas time, do you celebrate all the milestones, whether it's people's related, staff related, profit related?
Generally, Christmas time is just a blur for us, to be honest, because that's the busiest time of year for us. So, like for us, it's just sort of like let's just get it over with, and then celebrate in January. So yeah, so we tend to try and sort of December is just a hectic. It's just in any retail space that you're in, it's very 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 hectic. Just get through it and survive, and literally you get to the end of it and go, yay, like we've done it now. But yeah, December's just crazy.
Because I just wanted to say, hey, if you ever celebrate, if you ever throw a party, can you please invite Tom to Conversations to get on the joys? Because I just love getting invited to parties.
We try and do them every sort of 3-4 months or so.
Yes.
Normally, yeah.
Because I've followed, some of the interviewees, some of my guests, and I get to witness these like crazy moments, the highs and the lows. I'm always there. I'm there for the highs and the lows. So you cry together with the guests, and then you laugh together with the guests.
Yeah. No,
We go through so much
definitely.
emotions.
No, that's good. That's good.
Let's talk about increasing running staff costs and then inflation.
Yeah.
Every business owner's like things they have to guard on. When business is not doing so well, because it impacts business profitability.
Definitely. And you can sort of fall down this sort of, or get stuck in a rut of sort of trying to, as the term goes, sort of saving yourself rich. Which we try not to do with our day-to-day business, because you just can't. Like you can't really do that, because that then impacts obviously service. It impacts experience. It'll impact customer retention. It impacts staff retention. So yes, we have got the increases in staff costs every year, because that's just part of the industry that we're in. Like we have industry awards, and they get paid a certain rate, and then every year that goes up. And I don't begrudge anyone getting a pay rise at all, definitely not. But yeah, when you've got a business that when you're in tough times and it's not really growing, it does sort of like it can become tough on a day-to-day basis, because you sort of seeing those numbers growing, but you're not really seeing the other tracking line sort of going up at the same rate, and that can be a bit disheartening on a month-to-month or day or week-to-week basis, I suppose. But yeah, like you've just got to balance it. That's all you can do. So like with our team, like And I can only speak from my personal experience. Like, we try and make our team more efficient and more productive, and we sort of try and put a little bit of pressure on them in the sort of equation that you would normally run a store. It would generally be for one Optom. For every one Optom is free retail staff. So that's normally what you would run at if you don't really want to make profit. If you want to make profit, then generally it would normally be 2.5 to 2 staff members. For myself, because I work on the shop floor, I sort of class myself as 2 people. So like generally when we're running, say, 3 clinics, that should be 6 people, but we generally run on 4 people. And we just and the staff get used to the workload as well. That's the thing. I feel like if you put pressure on people, they'll either crack or they'll expand. And like for our team, I find that they expand purely because obviously I'm there supporting them as well, and I'm there sort of shoulder to shoulder with them and not sort of dictating from a pedestal going, you do this, you do that. That's disheartening for people. But when you're actually stood next to them and you're sort of forward facing customers, I believe, like, yes, we do have staff costs and we do have inflation and we have everything else that sort of goes with it, but I think if you stand side by side to them and you show that solidarity with them, they will work harder and you'll get more out of people.
I find it very inspiring that managers with what you've mentioned. So, and that is vital to any business's success.
So like you can't ask someone else to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. So lead by example. If you have to sweep the floors, you have to mop the floors. I personally enjoy that, so I don't really mind mopping floors. Bit of a clean freak, so so vacuuming, cleaning, whatever. Get my little duster out. Why not? It's fun.
It's quite therapeutic. Like, I like washing dishes.
It is.
I have friends that don't like washing dishes. But I'm like, that's okay, leave it with me, because it's. I don't know, I've got this like quirk, like I think certain detergents smell really nice. So you're just kind of like doing this motion and it smells nice, you're making bubbles, woo, I get it, I get it. Yeah, let's not look at, for example, the category of work. I mean, if I have to clean toilet, I'll clean toilet.
Exactly.
Like, it's got to be done, like I'm the owner, like.
You have to do it.
You can't say, hey,
sort of show them, say, listen, this is what I do. Even for like upcoming managers and supervisors that are coming in, they will, as part of their training, they will sometimes visit other stores and they will actually turn around and say, wow, like you actually help us out a lot. Like we go to other stores and they're sort of sat in the office or they're sat doing whatever they're doing and they're not actually working on the shop floor, and they're like, we love the fact that you do that. And I'm like, that's what you've got to do. Like you have to. If you're going to be a good leader, you have to lead by example.
Now, the funny thing is, I mentioned cleaning the toilet. That wasn't just an analogy. That was something I remember because I was so inspired. I literally saw the owner. This owner was raking in like 5.5 to like 8 million per annum. But he'll still put his gloves on and go scrub the bathroom. Because he says that no matter how much he pays for cleaners, they don't do it properly. They don't do it up to his standards. No matter how much time he spends coaching cleaners, he's like, all right, you know what? I'm not spending another 2.5 hours coaching. I'm just going to do it myself.
But you'll generally find successful people will do that as well. Successful people generally are driven. They have higher standards than the average. So to become successful, you have to have higher standards.
And the standards are covered across the board in their personal life, their own self-development. Are they learning things to how they associate with people? It's everything. It's like probabilities are low. Oh, crick, I need to come up with a contingency plan. So it's everything. That's definitely something I see. It's a pattern with people that are onto something. They're onto something so big.
Profitability will come. If you train your staff right and you lead by example. I don't run my business based on my bottom line. I run my business based on obviously the performance of the people around me, but if I can get the best out of those people, that profit will come regardless of what I'm doing, like because I've set that standard within them.
You mentioned people have been calling you to request that you take over another store. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's flattering, obviously, but yeah, I'm sort of happy where I am at the moment. So yeah, it's not really something that I'm sort of really chasing at the moment, but it's definitely nice to be sort of considered for things like that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And-
Considering how far I am along in my career, a lot of people will sort of take the foot off the gas a little bit now and go, look, I'm comfortable, I'm happy doing what I'm doing, but like personally, I have sort of like that drive within me where I want to obviously get better and challenge myself and sort of look for other challenges, whether that's obviously within the same industry or other industries. I'm always trying to learn and evolve because you have to. It's evolve or die, basically. Like you can't just stay the way you are forever. Like that's not how the world works.
Definitely take that as a compliment. If people reach out to you expecting that you could save the day,
Definitely
a compliment.
Yeah.
It means that you're definitely on the right path,
Yeah.
in the right direction, doing the best you can.
And I get people calling me from other stores saying, look, I see that you're like, because everyone sees each other's performance in regards to like obviously everything what the store's doing basically, and you can sort of reach out to people, so you call them up and they'll be like, listen, like I'm doing this really, really well. So like I've had it in the past where people have sort of come to me and said, your staff costs are really low compared to other stores, or your remakes are really low compared to other stores. How can I do that? And then it literally just comes down to having the conversation. And it always comes back to the same thing. It's like, are you on the shop floor? Are you leading by example? And if you're not, then that's your answer.
Yeah.
Like you go back to the basics of being on the shop floor, being shoulder to shoulder with people, and you will get more out of those people.
Yeah.
And you will get the best out of those people
Yeah.
if you're a good leader. Yeah.
So you're saying that Specsavers release other branches financials?
Not financials, no. So just like key metrics.
Yeah.
So like it might be certain key metrics within the business. You have to have a benchmark. You have to have a benchmark. So they'll be like, right, okay, a large store will be doing this much in sales. We don't talk about profit because profit is what it is, but it'll be like, this is how much you should be doing in sales. This is pretty much where your staff cost should be. So if you're like I said before, you've got a large store, should be at 30 to 32%. XL stores would be probably touching up 34%, for instance, for staff costs. Rent, again, is a bit of a tricky one because everyone's rent situation is different, so we can't control that. But if you're involved within that negotiation from day one, then obviously yes, you can control it a little bit. And yeah, like we obviously have certain numbers, so we'll be like, right, a large store should be doing this much with 2 rooms, 3 rooms, 4 rooms, 5 rooms plus whatever each metric may be. So if it's a large store, then it's generally based on I think it's 400 site tests a week. That's what it's classed as, like as a category. Sorry, an XL store is classed as 400. A large store is classed as 300. So to be in those categories, that's where you have to hit. So then each store then knows, because yeah, okay, I'm doing 300 site tests, so this is what my metrics need to be.
Yeah. Sorry. 400 site tests?
Yeah, so actually seeing 400 people coming through the door.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So that would be an XL store. Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting metric.
Yeah,
like
a large store would be 300.
Per day or per week?
Per week.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was like, wow, the optometrist might have to be going flying to
yeah, definitely.
see 400 people a day.
Yeah.
Maybe dispensing, yeah, but they're bigger.
Generally.
They'll have multiple optometrists.
Yes, of course, like 6, 7 rooms every day.
Yeah. I like to see that familiar face because I wear my glasses myself.
Yeah.
I'm always like, because you don't need to get eyes checked every day, so you go every now and then.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to say, oh, my optometrist.
Familiarity.
Oh, you know.
Yeah. Same with us, like we like staff retention because obviously then people get used to that. It's like going to a certain GP or a certain dentist or whatever it may be. Yeah.
I've been very lucky that, I have had even though the optometrists move on or they open their own stores or they branch out or move away, the next in line's equally professional. Like
Generally,
I'm very lucky that, So could you provide some current insights into the turnover of Deer Park Specsavers?
Yeah, so what, on a yearly basis or
Yeah,
so like a yearly basis, like we're sort of tracking between that $3.5 to $4 million mark at the moment. Yeah.
Some happy figures.
Yeah, so it's good numbers, yeah. And we've got a lot of sort of wiggle room with that.
I have to say, a lot of employees, for example, a lot of people that don't own a business would be dreaming, oh wow, that sounds like it'd be cool to have. Yeah, not knowing business owners have to think a lot to get it to that, right?
Well, I actually
It's
sit
just
with my
not-
people, like, and I sit with them and I tell them the numbers as well. So I'll be like, listen, this is what we turned over, but out of that, this was all the costs.
Yeah.
And then when you explain it to them like that, they go, oh wow, okay, so you're not actually making as much as what we thought you was making. It's like, no, I'm not. Like, so yeah, you've got, but again, that builds that trust and rapport with the team as well, and
Yes.
they then trust me to be open and honest with them, because
Yes.
a lot of people are not open and honest about stuff like that, even from a peer-to-peer perspective. Like, I speak to people in my industry, and I love talking about money and numbers and figures, but you'll speak to someone else and they'll be very cagey about what they make and profit
Yeah.
and things like that. So
But
yeah.
I think, you know, if you're consulting someone or someone consults you, you should give as much information as possible,
yeah.
because then that's useful.
Yeah.
Because if you hold back and people know, and then people go, well, I feel like they're holding back, so that it obviously means they don't want to share. Then there will be no next time. There will be no other phone calls.
Exactly.
So I'm of the understanding, I think help as much as you can.
Definitely.
Because it's now the information stage. We have the internet, but it's not enough. Experience is worth more.
Oh,
I can't
definitely.
go on Google and go, how do I run a dispensing optical
Yeah.
business, become that director? There is no way I
No.
can get to your level. Yeah, there's no way I'd go get a loan and start running that business, because I'd fail. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I'd hit-
yeah, you've got to build up to that, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
But I think coming back to, like, obviously talking about profit and numbers, people get very uncomfortable about talking about money. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a thing that people don't want to talk about. And
can't avoid it.
It amazes me how people go through life not being open and honest about
Yeah.
that. And it's not just from a business sense; it's from a personal sense as well.
Yeah.
People don't like talking about debt. They don't like talking about, obviously,
Yeah.
credit cards, bills,
Yeah.
expenses, salaries, what they earn. Like,
Yeah.
no one really likes talking about that.
Yeah.
Unless you find someone that's successful in business, then they
Yeah.
will generally be open and honest about those numbers.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. When people have gone through hardships, they've started something, trialed and errored, stepped past hurdles,
Yeah.
and earned their first million, then the second, the third.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. That's when they go, okay, let me see who I can help, because I've got the money now. What's next?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, we had
What-
our
what-
best year a few years ago, and we, like I said, we turned over sort of $4 million. From that, we sort of made cumulatively as a partnership, we made $500,000 profit.
Yeah.
And it's like, and making those type of numbers is not easy,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
But then when you talk to people about it, they get a bit uncomfortable, and it just sort of amazes me. It's like, we're all adults here. Like,
Yeah.
we should be able to have these discussions, but
Yeah.
people don't like talking about it.
I want to encourage the audience, you know, talk to people that you trust, consult those that have made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's my motto in life. Like, I don't want to talk to people either.
Yep. And a lot of people sit on the fence and it's all theory, and mind you, it's probably not correct, because they've not done it themselves. They've not trialed and errored, and
Yeah.
then they just go by what they think. They've got that bias. It's almost that cynicism. Like, they're so cynical about life.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas it's much more inspiring to listen to somebody that said, okay, I tried 3 different variations of a business, but this one succeeded.
Yeah.
Only because I learned from the previous 2 businesses,
Yeah.
because of the mistakes I made.
You've got
Yeah.
to keep trying. You
Yeah.
got to always bet on yourself and always sort of believe that you can do it and take that risk,
Yeah.
and take that leap. Because if you don't, you'll never know, and you don't want to go through life saying what if.
Yeah.
I would never want to live my life like that. Like, I ended up in Australia from that theory. Like, so I didn't want to
Yeah.
say what if. So I'm like, yep, let's give it a go. Why not?
Yeah.
And it's worked out, obviously. But yeah, everyone has their own sort of theories around that, I suppose, and everyone has their own concepts on that. But I would say, yeah, definitely bet on yourself and yeah, pretty much give it a go. Why not? What's the worst that can happen? Like, I'm not saying burn the bridges and like sort of burn all the boats, but like at least sort of give it a go, whatever that may be, whatever industry, whatever hustle, side hustle, whatever you want to call it, whatever that buzzword is at the moment. Like, it's like, just give it a go, like, because you'll never know if you don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not about going out there and getting yourself into masses of debt and sort of like not. You've got to slowly take those steps. It's not like it's very flippant of me to talk about millions and and things like that. But it's took time to get to that stage where I'm confident to talk about things like that.
Yes.
You're not going to do that from day one. It's going to take time for you to get to that stage.
Yeah.
But you've got to at least try and believe in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Just sitting across you and listening to you talk about the stats, like $40,000 a week to, hitting beyond, was it $16,000?
We're doing about, it started off as, like I said, it started off as 17, then we went up to 40, now we've grown the business, now we're sitting at around about 65,000 a week average on a normal week, and then as we start to progress into sort of Christmas, New Year, then it'll start to grow a little bit, so we may do 80, 100, ideally this year my goal is 120 in a week, but we'll see. We'll see how we go with that.
Yep. You talked about the importance of choosing partners and looking at numbers before buying into any joint ventures. That really hit home because I think you probably do have to make the assessment very quickly and earlier on and not avoid what you're saying about talking about money. You probably equally want to find someone that can relate to the understanding of money, costs and all that kind of stuff. So what have you learnt from, how do you make the assessment?
With the partnership itself, like I would say, again, coming back to sort of opposites attract, I would say, like obviously you've got to find strengths and weaknesses in each other, and you've got to find two people that complement each other for things like that as well. So like for instance, one may be really analytical and the other one may be very sort of outgoing, so that would be a good match, because then at least you know that someone's going to look after the numbers and someone's going to drive the business. So you want them you definitely want them complements within each other, so that at least you've got them strengths with each other. When things get tough in a certain moment, one of them will be able to handle that, and then obviously when things are not so good in another area, the other person's got that skill to sort of help back up and fill that gap of knowledge that you need. But yeah, partnership is massive. Like regardless of what business you're in, whether you're in my industry or in any industry really, partnership is a massive thing. And if you want to go further, you go with someone else. You go together. You don't go on your own. So getting to the next stage, I think sometimes you need that, because that other person sees your blind spots and sees the business's blind spots. And if you can find that person in life, in obviously relationships, whether that be in business or in life in general, like then yeah, that's great that you've got them people in there that can see those blind spots within the business or within your personal life.
Would you say your business acumen helps you determine market trends? Like you're able to see market trends a little bit more clearly?
Maybe it's hard to say, like, because I'm only really in one industry and I'm not across a broad range of locations, so it's hard to sort of, I suppose, find those market trends and identify market trends. But I think within my industry, there's definitely trends moving towards, like for instance, frame styling and obviously lenses, and we're noticing now that we're getting a lot more people that are coming in that are, for instance, short-sighted because of schooling, because everything's on an iPad now or on a whiteboard, so people are sort of coming in and they're struggling with their vision because of that. So yeah, that's one of the trends I would say, definitely.
Because you know Facebook, right? Mark Zuckerberg's releasing, and they've released the Meta glasses.
Yes, yeah.
And I wonder if they've reached out to Specsavers to talk about, hey, can we...
Maybe they would, yeah. Like I was talking to a colleague the other week and they was mentioning that there's glasses out there that are going to be augmented reality where you're going to be able to do an eye test with the glasses as well. Which will be really interesting to see if that's the case. Like we've already got machines out there that can do a test without a person being there. So you literally sit on the machine, you press the button yourself, and it asks the questions.
Oh wow!
And yeah, those are coming on in leaps and bounds over the last few years. Like the technology has changed massively. Like and the actual success of the tests are getting really, really good now.
Perfect. That's what I want to know, because I was like, oh, I wonder, if in your industry you can see very obvious market trends.
Oh, definitely. They're sort of making it a lot easier now to have tests remotely as well. So because especially in Australia being such a big country as well, they want to be able to bring those things to other people that need it in certain communities and stuff as well. So they've got these machines now that literally you can put in the back of a car and take 1,000 miles if you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, can you own shares of Specsavers?
It's not publicly listed and it never will
It's
be.
not?
No.
Oh,
No, it never
okay.
will be, no.
Oh.
No, so it's owned by a family and it's
Yeah.
going to stay in the family. So
Yeah,
it's
okay.
in as far as I'm aware, it's in a bloodline trust and
Yeah.
it'll never get sold and
Yeah.
it'll never get taken over by another company. It'll always stay within the family.
Oh, I'm glad you clarified that because
Yeah.
that's what I was pertaining to. Because otherwise, I'm like, oh, you already answered the question.
Yeah. No, I love buying shares, definitely.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm really interested in as well.
Yeah.
So I like building portfolios for stuff like that as well. And I think from a growth perspective, what you mentioned before about like obviously, do you want to sort of see yourself expand? Like for me, like financial education is really important to me, and obviously teaching people around me financial education as well. So like I try to obviously help everyone at work with like their stock picks and portfolio building and things like that, and they're all sort of 18 to 25 years old. So it's great to be able to help people and do that type of stuff, and not sort of obviously they're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes, but to have someone there at that age to help them with that financial literacy, because you're not taught that in schools, and it's so hard to find someone that's out there that's willing to talk about it on a personal level. Say you work in a certain industry, no one talks about money. So it's hard to find these people out there that are willing to like open up about all of these things. And I'm very open with all of that type of stuff, with my numbers, my financial situation, my net worth, all of that. I will sort of explain that to anyone that's happy to ask. Then I'm happy to sit down and teach them about all of them things and how to get to that point as well.
Yeah.
Because if you don't ask, you'll never know.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
No.
Until somebody tells you and opens up another door. You're like,
Exactly.
oh wow, this is kind of cool.
Yeah. Like, and I just try and educate the people around me as much as possible, really. Yeah. Like when me and my wife got together, she didn't know what a dividend was and she didn't know how to buy stocks, and now she trades stocks on a daily basis, or she'll tell me about interest rates and she'll tell me about inflation and all of this stuff that she never really cared about before, but now it's sort of like it's just something that we talk about on a daily basis.
What background did she come from?
She's Iranian.
Oh no, as in work-wise.
A cafe manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, then she has operating experience. How
Yeah.
to operate. Yeah.
Yeah, so she was running a local cafe, and then she got pregnant and now she's looking after our daughter at the moment.
Yeah, which is a full-time job.
It is definitely a full-time job, and
can
hats
I
off
just-
to her.
Moms that go, yep, you can have my job. This is harder than your work.
Yep, definitely.
It's definitely not easy.
No.
Because it's like this, we're going to work right. We deal with numbers, and we're logical about it, right? We don't cry over numbers. Well, we shouldn't really, right? We
No.
should just take it and go try to resolve this thing that we have, or celebrate if we're reaching that mark. But raising a kid, like mums have been telling me that, oh my goodness, you have to care. Like they'll cry endlessly for the next 5 hours, and you're like, what do you want? I've fed you, I've cleaned you, I've entertained you, but like dealing with somebody's emotions every day, that must be draining.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
draining. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you see that in work. Managing people's expectations around you. That's all a job ever is. Like if you're in any leadership position, it's about managing expectations.
Have you ever had to, in a performance review, like give negative feedback? Are you one to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll nip it in the bud, to be honest. I won't leave it till the performance review, because I feel like it's one of them things where if you don't bring it up when it happens, that like literally you can't then wait, say, oh, I'm gonna note that down and I'm gonna tell that person off in 6 months' time when the performance review is, because in between that time they might be great and they might have no other issues. So it's better to pull it up when it actually happens, and don't wait for 2 months or 6 months or whenever to let it fester as well.
Yes.
And then that person gets deflated at the end of that, and that becomes a completely negative experience. So it's sort of like, right, okay, let's go and have a sit down and discuss what's just happened, or can I speak to you tomorrow? Like, but you want to do it as soon as possible, like obviously. You don't want to leave it, definitely not.
Okay, that's good.
So I'm not one to fester, definitely not.
That's good, because there are managers out there that it's like it's almost like they're trying to catch you out. It's like, hey, I'm going to give you a strike and then another strike and
Yeah.
then try to penalise you, which is not the way to go about it.
That's weak
Yeah.
management, though.
That is not, yeah. And you'll soon find people will leave.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Because-
we sort of pride ourselves on staff retention, so our staff retention is above 90%, and that's great for a retail business. Like that's a really high number because most people don't stick with retail for more than sort of 3 to 4 years. Like we have people that have worked for us for 10 years. So yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Oh,
we've just
wow.
built that culture within the team that people are sort of happy to stay, and they don't really want to leave unless obviously they're going on to further education or whatever it may be.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Gary. I think we have talked about things on different angles this time around, yeah. And I love how we started. Thank you for sharing the fatherhood side of things.
Yep.
Yeah. It's great that the audience gets to know the person, not just as director of a company, but that behind there you've shared the personal aspects of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for having me.
I wanted to